ESPN Sunday Night Baseball Game of the Week. Tonight, the Cleveland Indians, led by Albert Bell with 25 homers, take on the White Sox and Major League RBI leader Frank Thomas. It's the ESPN Sunday Night Game of the Week. Last night, the White Sox were within one victory of tying Cleveland for first place. Then Ozzie Guillen's triple gave them a 1-0 lead, and they took that to the ninth inning. Then the White Sox, just 2 outs away from first place, gave up the tying run. And then in the 10th, Jim Thome's 2 RBI single gave Cleveland a 3-2 victory and kept them in sole possession of first place. It's summertime on the south side of Chicago. Temperatures reached into the 90s today. And here we are at Comiskey Park for the 4th and final game of the series between the top 2 teams in the American League Central. Cleveland by 2 games over Chicago. So this ball game a little more important for the White Sox as they try and stay in the race with the mighty Indians. Hello, everyone. I'm John Miller. Welcome to our telecast tonight. Now, the Cleveland Indians are in the unfamiliar position of struggling. Yes, the Indians are struggling. They've lost 7 of their last 9, even though they won here last night. Albert Bell is struggling. He has not hit a home run for 18 days. Kenny Lofton, he's not struggling so much. He's hitting .315. He leads the league with 41 steals. My partner, Joe Morgan, had a chance to talk to him down at the batting cage.
You guys could be in a pennant race this year, something that didn't happen last year.
Well, that's something, teams always look for, is some kind of excitement during the year, and that's something that's going on right now. We got some excitement for the fans in Cleveland right now and in Chicago, so it's going to be very exciting.
Albert Bell's not swinging the bat very well. Some of the big guys not hitting. Does that change your role on this ball club?
Well, in a way it does, because I have to get on to try to create some runs, and that's my job anyway. But right now, I might be pressing a little bit too much because I know I have to get on right now to get on. Also in the outfield, I'm kind of pressing too because I want to do a whole lot, and I'm overdoing myself because right now pitcher's pitcher's struggling a little bit, and I'm end up trying to overdo something to help them out and end up messing it up, the whole situation.
Pressing a little bit, but nonetheless, very exciting.
Well, he's a very exciting player, and he is still the key to this Indians offense.
All right, now tonight for Cleveland, Orel Hershiser is on the mound, and Orel is not struggling. 4 straight starts. He has been spectacular. A .66 ERA. When he faces the White Sox, you've got the big hurt, Frank Thomas, Robin Ventura, Harold Baines, a lot of offense there.
You're right, and the key guy, I think, tonight, Tony Phillips. Tony Phillips has been getting on base. I think Frank Thomas obviously gets on base every game almost. So it will be up to Robin Ventura and Harold Baines. They will get the RBI situations tonight. They'll have to produce.
All right. Hershiser to be opposed by Kevin Tapani. He's been the White Sox best pitcher. The ball game is coming up. The ESPN Sunday Night Baseball Game of the Week is brought to you by the more than 1,325 AutoZone stores across America. AutoZone, the best parts in auto parts. And by Glidden, the company that makes the world a colorful place. Coming up, it's Cleveland with slugger Albert Bell taking on the White Sox and RBI leader Frank Thomas. It's the ESPN Sunday Night Game of the Week. The ESPN Sunday Night Baseball Game of the Week from Comiskey Park in Chicago. It's just a perfect night for a ball game. There's Mike Hargrove. He hasn't been sleeping so well lately. His ball club is still very potent, as you can see. They hit a lot of home runs, but they're not right up top of the league as they were last year in all of those categories. But it's a great lineup. You'll recognize the names. Kenny Lofton leads off in center field. Omar Vizquel at short. Carlos Baerga back in the number 3 spot at second base. Albert Bell in left field. He got 25 homers, but June has not been a good month for Albert, to say the least. Jim Thome got the game-winning hit last night at third base. Eddie Murray, now with 490 home runs. He's the DH. Manny Ramirez in right field. Sandy Alomar, the catcher, and Scott Leyes at first in place of the injured Julio Franco. And on the mound for the White Sox, and he has really been a big man in this rotation. His first year in Chicago, Kevin Tapani, he is 8-4 for the year. 3rd in the league in earned run average. And we talked to Kevin yesterday, and he demonstrated his pitching repertoire for us.
That's a 4-seam fastball, 2-seam fastball, and sometimes roll it over a little bit more to get a little more sink on it. I throw just a circle change and a slider. And this year I've been working in a little bit more with a kind of an off-centered split finger pitch.
Well, I think it's important for him to get his off-speed pitches over his slider and his changeup, even though he's going to use the sinker a lot. if they can sit on one pitch, they will still adjust very well. The Indians are pretty good hitters. And the defense for the Chicago White Sox. You take a look at Robin Ventura. He had 17 errors last year, only 4 so far this year. He got off to a slow start last year defensively. He's gotten off to a good start, playing good defense. And that's one of the big differences in the White Sox this year. They are playing better in the field.
Robin Ventura, and also after a slow start this year with the bat, he has begun to come on. He's up to 17 home runs now, as both ball clubs are nearing the halfway point of the 1996 season. Here is Kenny Lofton. And I thought it was interesting, Joe, your talk with Kenny down at the batting cage, batting practice, talking about how with the ball club struggling, and with Albert Bell in particular struggling right now, he feels like it's up to him to take up some of the slack and get on base a little bit more often. And consequently, he perhaps has been pressing and trying to do a little bit too much lately.
Well, that does happen, but it happens in the opposite direction sometimes. Maybe when Kenny at the top of the order is not getting on as consistently as they normally do, Albert Bell in the 3rd and 4th place hitter will be trying to hit the ball out of the ballpark. So that's the way the team works.
Inside to Lofton, and you saw those numbers. He has some rather impressive numbers against Tapani in the past, hitting over 500 against him. Albert will be due up 4th in the inning if somebody gets aboard. Vizquel is on deck, and the count remains. The count goes to 1 ball and 2 strikes now. We're in the twilight here, Comiskey Park. A bright sunshine is lighting up the backdrop in center field, or at least the upper part of the backdrop out there. And the bleachers out in left center field. There you see the look from behind the plate. And the entire field itself is in the shadows. 1-2 the count. Check swing right back to Tappan.
That's exactly what I was talking about, John. See, that's an off-speed slider. That changes the look that Tapani gives a hitter. He has to be able to throw that pitch over the plate or keep them from sitting on the fastball. You see the rotation? That is a slider going down, and you see he fools Lofton. He tries to check his swing, can't do it.
So Lofton is gone, and here is Omar Vizquel. Ball 1. Now, the idea when they got Julio Franco was that Franco would hit number 2, and a little more offense up at the top of the order behind Lofton, and for Vizquel to hit down in the order. But now Franco's got a hamstring muscle problem, and that one is called a strike as he bluffed the bunt. 1 ball, 1 strike to Vizquel. But here's Vizquel having an outstanding first half. He's hitting .297 with 4 homers and 35 batted innings. He also got 20 doubles. And he can steal a base. He has 18 steals, so he complements Lofton awfully well at the top of the batting order, and he's pretty handy with the bat. Well, they just have a lot of weapons in this ball club.
That's what I was going to say. Maybe they have more hitters than they do spots in the lineup, but the one thing about Franco, he can hit lower in the order because he is an RBI man as well.
2-2, and you see our Judge gun reading there. So Tapani threw pretty hard on that one. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Never known as a hard thrower. I mean, he's the sinker ball type pitcher. He seems to have thrived from the long grass on the infield here. They're the slower infield than you get in some ballparks. He is 7-1 in this ballpark with an earned run average below 3.
Well, John, when he throws the 4-seam fastballs he described when his pitches, the fastball, he will get it up there at 90 miles an hour. The sinker will go about 85 to 88.
Well, there's 85, and the ball is fouled off to the left. 2-2 the count. There's Terry Bevington, the manager of the White Sox. His first full season as the manager, and consequently his first pennant race as a manager. His ball club sort of thrust itself into the race with a stretch where they went 19-3. Did he swing? The appeal. No, says Durwood Merrill. So the count is 3-2. Unfortunately for the White Sox, soon after they went 19-3, they lost 8 in a row. And they're really just coming out of that. It's only been the last 5 days or so that they ended that 8-game losing streak. That's a fly ball down the left field line. Tony Phillips giving chase, but it's just back into the first row of the seats out there.
But lucky for the White Sox, the Indians have had some bad stretches too. So that is, that with them winning a few ball games is combined to keep this race close.
Well, the Cleveland Indians were home against the Yankees last week and lost all 4 games to New York, which was rather astounding. Tony Phillips, and that is out number 2. Vizquel is retired, and here comes Carlos Baerga.
And, John, here's another key to the Indians, along with Albert Bell and the other sluggers. Carlos is not having as good a season so far as he had last year, but he's always capable of getting hot and carrying this ball club for a while. And I think when he starts to hitting up around 300, gets his average up where it belongs, I think you'll see a difference in this Indians ball club.
When you talk about not as last year, I mean, 4 straight years has hit over 300. Right. He had 2 straight years over 200 hits, over 20 homers, over 100 RBIs, and then the 2 strike-interrupted seasons, and he might have done all of that 4 straight years if he had the chance. That's a base hit over the head of Frank Thomas. Into the corner, and Baerga will be able to run for a while. He will stop at second base as Mouton gets it back in, and that will bring up Albert Bell after the Baerga double. Albert Bell coming up, and he always provokes a reaction in an enemy ballpark when he is introduced.
Well, the great thing for Albert, John, is that a lot of Cleveland Indians fans have come down for this series, and so he does get some positive responses.
Albert still having a great year, 307. Second in the league in home runs. By the way, Brady Anderson, the league leading home run hitter, hit number 27 today at Yankee Stadium for Baltimore. And Albert with 70 runs batted in, but he's been cold of late. That one's a little bit low on the outside. Albert, I mean, and by every measurement, is having a great year right now, but he is not homered for 18 days. Only 4 home runs for the entire month of June, and none since June the 12th. We've got 50 at-bats without a home run.
And there's another part of this equation, too, and that is, you know, Eddie Murray hit behind him last year. Being a switch hitter, he always got Albert some good pitches to hit. Eddie did not hit as well, and in this series alone, the White Sox have walked Albert on a consistent basis day in and day out. And if you don't get to swing the bat every day, a lot of sluggers will go into tailspin.
That's a strike call on the outside with a fastball. Now it is 1 ball and 2 strikes to Albert Bell. Here's Eddie Murray on deck. Not on deck, he's in the dugout. And Jim Thome is on deck.
Well, that's the point. They've used Thome behind Bell instead of Murray, as he has been the last couple of years.
Just off the corner, a little bit low, 2-2. Now, last year, Albert walked 73 times. That's in a 144-game season. This year, he has walked 53 times in less than half a year. So that is just also what you're talking about. And it's been going up lately. Right back to Tappan. And so it goes on for Albert Bell. 1 man left on at the end of a half inning. Cleveland nothing. And Chicago coming up against Oral Hershiser. The big hurt coming up. John Miller, Joe Morgan, the ESPN Sunday Night Baseball Game of the Week. No score as we go to the last of the first inning. Terry Bevington, first full year as the manager of the White Sox, and that offense has been pretty potent. Nearly 6 runs a game, 98 home runs. They've got some pop in that lineup. Here's his batting order for this one. It'll be Tony Phillips, and wherever he goes, runs seem to follow. It'll be Dave Martinez in center field. Frank Thomas, who leads the league in RBIs with 80, and he's got more RBIs than games played. Harold Baines, the former White Sox, he's back in town and having a fine year. Robin Ventura at third base. Lyle Mouton in right field. Norberto Martin in place of Ray Durham at second base. Ron Karkovice, the strong-arm catcher. And Ozzie Guillen is the shortstop hitting ninth. And on the mound, the veteran right-hander, Oral Hershiser, making his first Comiskey Park start.
Well, Oral has pitched real well his last 4 starts. At the beginning of the season, he was having trouble with his sinker. He said he couldn't get it down and it didn't have the good movement on it. Throws a sinker, slider, curve, change. He throws just about every pitch in the book. And he's usually a guy that tries to get you to bait you to chase the ball out of the strike zone. If he can stay ahead in the count, he will get you to chase pitches right out of the strike zone.
Oral Hershiser, always fun to watch. Sandy Alomar told me, Joe, that said watch the first 3 hitters, Phillips, Martinez, Thomas, have thrown nothing but sinkers tonight. And he says, hey, he'll throw the other stuff eventually, but that's really his game. He wants you to hit the ball on the ground. got to throw a strike to this guy. 0-1.
You know, you're talking about Tony Phillips and how he has helped every team that he's been with. Sparky Anderson made a statement about Phillips that I think says it all, and that is any team that he's on is a better team than they were before he got there. I think that's a pretty good statement.
And that sinker misses. Morrow thought he had it in there. Alomar held it a little extra while longer. Now, in his last 4 starts, 2 against the Red Sox, they can hit. 1 against the Yankees, we know they can hit. And 1 against the Angels. 3 of those 4 starts, he never gave up a run. And the other one, against the Yanks, he gave up 2 runs. A sinker bounced to second by Edgar. Throws him out. Scott Leyes over there at first base. And there is 1 away.
And let's take a look at the Cleveland Indians defense. You see Baerga there. Kenny Lofton, Gold Glover in center field. I mean, he is just a fantastic center fielder. And there you see Vizquel. He's won 3 Gold Gloves in a row.
Now Dave Martinez will come up. And Dave, a guy who has always been what you would call a role player, a guy off the bench, a guy who fills in when somebody's injured. But Terry Bevington likes his bat so much and likes his defense so much that he gets him in there against all the right-handers. He's become one of the almost regulars. I mean, he will sit out against a lot of lefties, but he is hitting .331. 5 homers, 30 batted in. No score in the game. And just off the outside from Hershiser. 1 ball and 1 strike. Now, when the year started, Orel was pitching so poorly that many were whispering that maybe he was finished, that maybe he had lost it, and the Indians were very concerned about it. Another bounding ball picked up by Edgar. So far, it's going to plan. He's throwing the sinker, and they're hitting it on the ground right at somebody. 2 men down. And here comes the big hurt, Frank Thomas. Thomas is doing it all again. Hitting for average, .342. For power, 22 homers. He leads the majors in RBIs with 80. And he has a .455 on base average because nobody walks more than Frank Thomas. 0-1 the sinker. And last year, Hershiser made 2 starts against the White Sox, both in Jacobs Field. The last time he faced them, Frank Thomas hit a home run against him. Wow, there's a fastball in there for a called strike.
So one thing that Hershiser will do, he will nibble, and just when you think he's going to pitch around you, he'll just throw you a fastball right down the middle, a straight fastball rather than a sinker, and it gets there just a little quicker than you're expecting it to.
Because Frank looked like he wasn't swinging no matter what there, didn't he? Baerga again. Carlos Baerga with his own private defensive inning. 3 up, 3 down. Jim Thome, Eddie Murray coming up. No score after 1. Ball 1 to Jim Thome. The pitch was thrown too low by Kevin Tapani, and here we go to the top of the 2nd inning. No score in the game. Thome, Murray, and Ramirez coming up. And Thome takes ball 2. Now, Thome last night in the 10th inning of a ball game hit a 2-run single to break a 1-1 tie. That proved to be the winning hit. And Cleveland won the ball game 3-2. Changed up on him.
Thome gets a little overshadowed a little bit with, you know, the other stars on this ball club. But over the last couple of years, I think he has made the most improvement, both as a hitter and defensively, of all the ball players on the Indians. He has continued to learn how to hit. The experience, like last night, taking the left-hander's pitch right back through the middle, whereas his early years, he would always try to pull the ball. But now his philosophy is to try to drive that ball back through the middle when there are runners in scoring position. He doesn't have to hit the ball out of the ballpark all the time.
Well, he's hitting .309. Fastball just misses on the inside. Full count now. He hit .314 last year with 25 home runs. And most of the year hit 7, or sometimes even 8.
Well, he's your prototype 4th-place hitter, really a slugger that will protect your 3rd-place hitter, the guy that you want to get the most at-bats.
And they fouled that one off the catcher. It remains 3 balls and 2 strikes. Jim Thome wears the pad legs up high. And not many in baseball fashion that look nowadays.
He and Ozzie Guillen are kind of similar there. Ozzie,
We got two, maybe the only two, right here tonight. That's the second baseman, Martin, and Tomey is retired for out number 1. Now Eddie Murray is coming up. Now here on Friday, Eddie moved a step closer to 500 home runs, which of course very few have ever reached. This was it against James Baldwin back into the bullpen. Man, what a shot. His 11th home run of the year, number 490 lifetime. Only 2 in history, the history of the game, have ever had the combination of 3,000 hits and 500 home runs. And Eddie already has the 3,000 hits. So if he can stay healthy this year, he should get to 500. He's more than halfway there right now. He needed 21 when the season began, and he's got 11. And Eddie usually heats up with the weather. Busy night for second baseman. Martin throws out Eddie Murray out number 2.
of course, Willie Mays and Hank Aaron are the 2 sluggers who have those 500-plus home runs.
Not even the Babe is on
Not even the Babe. You're right. That's the point. There they are. Look at those numbers. Hank Aaron and Willie. Now, are those impressive or not?
I mean, it's a stretch to just limit it to the 500 3,000 since we're talking 660 and 755.
You're right. That's amazing.
We could exclude everybody else by saying the 660 home run 3,000 hit club. Here's Manny Ramirez, 270 batting average, which is well down from his hitting of last year, but 20 home runs and 58 runs batted in. There's that riding fastball from Tapani, up and in. 1 ball and no strikes. 2 down, nobody on. No score in the game. Now, the last 2 nights here, despite the big sluggers, the all-stars on both of these ball clubs, we had pitching duels here. Cleveland won here on Friday, 4-2. Cleveland came back with a 3-2 10-inning win last night. Martin. Well, it's Martin versus Baerga. The ESPN Sunday Night Baseball Game of the Week. Scoreless after 1.5. Harold Baines coming up. Stay with John Miller, Joe Morgan, your Sunday night telecasters. Now, this weekend, a special weekend in the American League because the top 2 teams in all 3 divisions have been going head-to-head. Here we got Cleveland and Chicago tonight. And in New York, the Yankees and Orioles head-to-head. And out in Seattle, the Rangers and Mariners. And, Joe, you'd kind of like to see that a little more often. It won't happen again until mid-September.
Well, that's what you like about pennant races. That's what creates a lot of excitement when the top 2 teams play each other, and especially when they start to make a run like the Chicago White Sox have done with the Cleveland Indians, because this was the only division last year where it was never a race.
I mean, that's how you build rivalries, right? I mean, the Cubs and the Cardinals, they had the geographic closeness, plus they play each other a lot in pennant races. Here's Harold Baines. Harold was such a good hitter with the White Sox earlier in his career that they retired his number after they sent him off. He went to Texas, Oakland, and most recently to Baltimore. He was a free agent this winter, and the White Sox brought him back and are glad they did. Harold has been driving in the big hurt a lot, and others as well. 55 RBIs. He's only played 66 games. I mean, this guy is just an outstanding hitter.
And, John, those 55 RBIs have been in clutch situations. I mean, he has gotten the clutch RBIs for this ball club so far this year. And he's what you call a professional hitter. This guy will always hit. I mean, he can handle any types of pitching, meaning off-speed pitches, fastballs. He adjusts very well.
Robin Ventura, another lefty, will follow against Hershiser. And then Muta, no score in the game. Hit hard. Baerga cannot get that one. Base hit. Well, Harold Baines is one of the differences in the White Sox this year. Tapani, tonight's pitcher. Also the addition of Tony Phillips, as we mentioned when he came up. Look at the American League Central last year through 79 games. And look where the White Sox were. 23.5 games out. Cleveland was also better than it has been so far this year at the top of the world. Cleveland is 9 games below where it was after 79. But look at the White Sox. Instead of 23.5 out, 2 games out. Here's Ventura. And he takes high for ball 1.
Well, the question, John, is whether the Cleveland Indians have fallen back to the pack or whether the White Sox have closed the gap. I think it's the White Sox have closed the gap a little bit, and you couldn't expect Cleveland to play and perform as well again this year as they did last year.
Robin Ventura Baerga's got it. The second one. Vizquel will hang on to it. So Baines is forced out at second for one away. Ventura reaches.
Well, you can see Baerga was trying to get himself in position to throw to second base, and he ends up falling down because this should have been a double play. Now watch, see, he's off balance a little bit right there. He was trying to catch it behind him so he would already be able to turn so he could wheel and throw to second base, and in doing so, he lost his footing.
Carlos Baerga, been a leader on this ball club, an important man in the clubhouse as well as in the lineup. Mouton, deep right center, but it hangs up. Looked like Lofton thought it was going to go much deeper than it did. He started to race back and then held up.
Well, Lofton was going by to swing. He took a big swing, but he hit it toward the end of the bat. In fact, the bat broke, and Lofton thought it was going farther. Watch the big swing, and he's gauging it from there. He thinks that he hits it a little better than he did, but he hit it toward the end of the bat, as you can see on the replay. And Lofton broke back quickly. But you'd rather go back and come in.
I like that. You're giving him a nickname. You got Frank Thomas, the big hurt, and now Lyle Mouton, the big swing. Two down here is Norberto Martin. I can't wait to hear what you come up for him.
Well, I was prepared for Ray Durham, so I don't know. I'll have to think of something.
Joe was so disappointed. He did all this studying.
You're right.
Because he always spends extra time on the second baseman.
You're right.
That's a foul down the right field line.
And, I mean, the fact that he's played very well defensively this year, you know, he's playing well. He's doing everything better this year than last year. So.
Well, that's good. Go ahead and use some of your Durham stuff. Yeah, you prepared it. Norberto Martin. One thing about Martin is he has hit well. He's only been in 22 games, but is hitting .368. He's been a handy man to have. He can play different positions around the infield. Hershiser misses with a sinker. 1 ball and 1 strike. Now, you got the White Sox and the Indians here in the Central battling it out. Over in the East, the Yankees and the Orioles. The Yankees had a 5.5-game lead going into action today, and Baltimore beat them 9-1 back at David Wells. And Brady Anderson hit a 3-run homer. Runner going. Vizquel gets back to the ball and throws out Martin, and that ends the inning. No score after 2. Sandy Alomar, brother of Roberto, coming up. Lofton will be due third. There's no score. The ESPN Sunday Night Baseball Game of the Week is brought to you by Foot Action. For every action, there's Foot Action. Sunday Night Baseball from Chicago. Here's Sandy Alomar, and Alomar takes a ball from Kevin Tapani. Sandy, big, strong, right-handed batting catcher, hitting .295, and that fastball misses. He, of course, is the brother of Roberto Alomar, who'll be most likely the All-Star second baseman for the American League in the All-Star game, which is coming up, a week from Tuesday. Hit hard but foul. 2-1. I asked him about growing up in Puerto Rico with his brother. I said, did you guys play games together? He says, oh yeah, we played games. I said, well, what was it like? He says, well, he always won. He was always the little brother, but he always won because he always cheated. I said, Roberto hated to lose so bad that he cheated. And that is a ball on outside, ball 3. He said they played a game that everybody played who grew up playing baseball. You know, up against a wall, they draw a box to be the strike zone. The batter would stand in front of the box, and you'd throw a rubber ball. And if it landed in the box, the guy didn't hit it, it was a strike. Nice pickup by Ventura, and he throws out Alomar. There's 1 away. Meanwhile, out in center field, a story of interest to our Audubon friends. A baby starling in our home for homeless birds. And, Joe, it's the center field camera and the home for homeless birds. ESPN did not normally get a lot of publicity for that aspect of taking care of our feathered friends. 1 strike to count to Scott Leyes. 0-1 to Leyes, who is 4 for 37. Former Minnesota Twin, just back from the disabled list, and he's in there now as the first baseman with Julio Franco out with the hamstring injury. And they're a little short-handed on the bench. So Lance, at least for the time being, will most likely be the first baseman. Alvaro Espinosa could also play over there. 1-2 to Lance. 1 out, nobody on. No score in the third. Now number 2. 2 men down. Kenny Lofton coming up.
On Thursday night, Lofton, watch this great catch he makes on Robin Ventura. A couple of hitters before, he tried to make the same catch, and he didn't quite get there. He makes this fantastic catch. I mean, only a basketball player can make a catch like that.
John, he's no longer a basketball player.
Well, he looked like one on that.
Kirby Puckett made catches like that all the time.
He can't jump that high.
Kirby he defied gravity. How about Devon White?
Yes, Devon White did.
There you go. And there's ball 1 to Kenny Lofton. Robin Ventura has not recovered yet from losing that home run. Down the left field line. Phillips, nice catch. It almost got away from him. 3 up and 3 down. Both pitchers making it look easy. Phillips will be due up third. No score. Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN. We're here every Sunday. Next Sunday we'll be at Camden Yards in Baltimore. And the Orioles will take on the Boston Red Sox. We'll see Cal Ripken, Roberto Alomar, Rafael Palmeiro, Bobby Bonilla, Mo Vaughn, Jose Canseco. It's sort of like a mini All-Star game all by itself next Sunday. And that will be, of course, just before the All-Star game. That's Sunday at 8 Eastern, 7 Central. Here's Ron Karkovice facing Oral Hershiser. And there's ball 2. Now, Hershiser's been making it look ridiculously easy. He's given up 1 hit. Coming into this inning, he's thrown only 19 pitches in the first 2 innings. Karkovice, then Guillen, and Phillips. Fastball for a strike. Karkovice is having a very poor season, only .224 average. 6 homers in 205 at-bats, but still one of the strongest throwing arms in the American League.
Yeah, he's a defensive player. So what you get in the offense, you get a plus. But his job is to handle the pitchers, handle his pitching staff well, and to throw out base runners.
And he's very good at that. Ron Karkovice, he is very strong, and if he does get a hold of one, he's well capable of hitting it a long, long way. But this year, he's not been getting hold of them very often. No score in the game. The outfield plays him deep and straight away. The infield plays him to pull. He wears those Chris Sabo goggles, I like to call them. Slider. Whoa. Now, where was that one, Joe?
That's what Hershiser said. That's a pretty good pitch. Well, it's unusual for a hitter to be able to lay off that pitch. But again, sometimes you take a pitch not because you think it's a ball, but because you couldn't hit it anyway.
Well, I don't think Karkovice should lay off that pitch ever again. He made a serious mistake laying off it. Broken back, and it's foul down the left field line. 3-2 the count, and Karkovice will have to get a new piece of wood. White Sox also have a new hitting instructor this year, Bill Buckner. I know one of your closest friends when you played, Joe.
Bill and I were kind of adversaries when we played. We kind of didn't get along, but we had a lot of respect for each other, and I still do. In fact, Bill and I were talking before the ball game, and his favorite guy on, I shouldn't say it that way, but his guy that's been most impressive to him has been Dave Martinez and the strides that he's made since he's been here. And you were talking about how well Martinez is hitting now, and that he's almost become a regular. And I think a lot of that credit would probably go to Bill Buckner and Martinez working together, because Buckner said that this guy has really come a long way.
Well, that's high praise indeed from you toward Buckner, thinking of him the way you do.
No, I mean, when you played for the Reds, you hated everything in Dodger blue, and the Dodgers hated everything that wore a red uniform. So that's the way it was. That was the rivalries you were talking about.
You hated all the Dodgers, but then there was Bill Buckner.
Have we had this conversation before?
Oh, was that one I promised I wouldn't bring up? Ball 4 to Karkovice. He gets a walk from Hershiser. Coming up on Wednesday, the Atlanta Braves, they've gone into a little hitting slump lately. Tom Glavine will take on Henry Rodriguez and Les Expos de Montreal from Stade Olympique at 7:30. And then the Rockies, they scored about 800 runs against the Dodgers this weekend. And the Giants have lost 10 in a row. Dante Bichette is going nuts. Let's see how he does outside of Coors Field. They'll play at Candlestick. That's 10:30, the second half of the doubleheader. Bichette and Galarraga and Vinny Castilla, they'll take on Williams and Barry Bonds and the Giants at Candlestick. The Giants have lost 10 in a row. They just got back into the race, and now 10 in a row. How about the Dodgers this weekend? Yesterday, the Dodgers are ahead 13-0 in Denver. Bottom of the 8th inning. They win the game 13-10. Guillen with a drop bunt. Sandy Alomar. It's off the glove, over to the stands, and over to third base will go Carcavine. Guillen will go back to first.
That's a smart play there by Guillen, just to drop the bunt down, because even if he's out at first base, he moves the runner into scoring position. But he does even better. Look at this. Is a beautiful bunt. I mean, right out in front of the plate, down the third base line. Sandy Alomar Jr. comes out, fires to first, off the glove of Scott Leas. I believe he had it beat anyway, but
yeah,
very close play at first.
I think it should be a hit.
Yes, it should be a hit and an error.
An error for letting Carcavine make it over to third base. I also thought that Leas should have caught that ball.
I did too.
He was trying to stand that. Well, he made the classic mistake of an inexperienced first baseman. And that's the way they will score it. And they're going to score the error on Leas, not on Alomar. So we are really in harmony with the official score here. Tony Phillips, the White Sox, with a chance to move ahead now. First and third, nobody out. And the big guns are coming up. And Phillips is a leadoff man. He gets on base all the time. But he is an excellent hitter and a good RBI man. He's had 43 RBIs hitting out of the leadoff spot.
Well, he is a good situation hitter. And what he will do is he knows he has to put the ball in play. He doesn't have to get a base hit. Long fly ball will do, or a ground ball to one of the infielders other than the first baseman and the third baseman, as long as he doesn't get into a double play. But his job now is to make sure he puts the ball in play.
Leas on the back at first with Guillen. Nice pitch on the outside. 2 strikes to count now to Phillips. Guillen, runner at third, and there's Carcavine over, or Carcavine is at third base. Guillen is over at first base. Guillen with 5 steals for the year. The outfield bunched up towards center, playing well off the lines at left and right. And sinker down the way. Orioles made some real strong pitches here to Phillips in this at-bat. No score in the game. Last of the third. This is really the first full-fledged scoring opportunity either team has had. Phillips and Hershiser, 2 great competitors. So to first, and back to the bag safely is Guillen.
Good pitch by Hershiser, and he's wondering why he's not getting that pitch. And a nice throw down the first base by Alomar. Actually, if the throw's a little lower, they may have had a shot at Guillen. See, now watch, Guillen is still moving off. See, he's going the wrong way, but the throw is up high, and by the time Leas gets it down, Guillen gets back safely. But you could see he wrong-footed him, and he was still moving towards second base, which is really not the proper way to take the lead. Once you sidestep out there, you're supposed to stop.
2-2 now to Phillips. First and third, nobody out. Dave Martinez on deck, then Frank Thomas. Double play ball by Erga, the second one. Vizquel back to first. 2. Double play, but Carcavine in to score. They were willing to exchange a run to get the 2 outs with the big guns coming up. It is 1-0, Chicago.
That's interesting play there, because anytime you're hitting with a runner at third and less than 2 outs, even if the bases are loaded, with no one out, you have to put the ball in play, John. Even if you hit into a double play, you will get 1 run. I mean, if he strikes out and then the next guy hits into a double play, you don't get any run. So the guy hitting with no one out has to put the ball in play. Nice turn here by Barrera and Vizquel. And we'll show you something later about Vizquel. He stays at the bag on this particular play. And 2 nights ago, he came across the bag.
Dave Martinez, 2 down, nobody out. And a foul ball. 0-1 the count. Well, it's interesting. I remember we had this discussion with Reggie Smith, the coach and a great former hitter down with the Dodgers. And he said, hey, there were times in the game where you'll gladly take a guy hitting a double play because it gets the run home. Right back to Hershiser. And the inning is over, so a minimum of damage out of a possible big inning for the White Sox. Vizquel will be coming up, then Baerga and that man. Sunday night baseball from Chicago. 1-0. The White Sox are ahead now. We go to the fourth inning. Omar Vizquel takes strike one from Kevin Tapani. Vizquel and then the power. Baerga and Bell. Ventura very shallow at third. Vizquel takes strike two. Well, Tapani is pitching very similarly to Oral Hershiser. Throwing strikes. Keeping the ball down. And that ball is fouled back onto the screen.
Well, they're very similar anyway. In the past, Hershiser had a little better overall control, and that's the reason that he overall has a little better record. But they both work with basically the same types of pitches.
A bloop to short. Ian, he caught it before it bounced.
Well, if he doesn't catch it before it bounces, it's a base hit. I'm going to show you a play that happened Friday night with Vizquel and Tony Phillips. Tony Phillips is trying to break up a double play. Now, this is tying run scores on this. Now, watch what happens here. See where Vizquel is? Well, between, you don't even see the runner and the pitcher. What will happen? The runner will close, then Vizquel will close, and they'll meet right here. If Vizquel stays at the bag, he would have been able to make the double play. See that right there? That is Vizquel not staying at the bag. He closed the gap for Phillips, and it allowed Phillips to break up the double play right there. But you see Phillips' right hand? The Indians complained about that and said he used his hands, but I think he was just throwing his hands up to protect himself.
They wanted a double play call.
Right. But again, that was the hustle of Tony Phillips trying to break up the double play, and it let the tying run score. The Sox went on to win that ball game 4-2.
Baerga, the hitter, he doubled his first time, and the count 1 ball and 1 strike. So what you're saying is, really, the point is not what happened, whether he did something illegal or not. The point is that Vizquel had a poor approach.
Yes, he should have stayed at the bag as he did in the ball on the ball hit last inning. He stayed at the bag, and that makes the runner have to come to you, which makes him have to run farther, and the farther he has to run, the longer it takes to get to you. But when you close a gap with him, that allows him to break up the double play. The point is, if you have a speedy runner at first base, the shortstop needs to stay at the bag unless it's a hard hit ball. If it's a slow hit ball, he has to stay there and allow himself the protection of the bag.
2-2 to Baerga. Albert Bell on deck. 1-0. Chicago ahead. It's been a very hotly contested series. The tight ball game on Friday. That was one of the big plays in that ball game. White Sox won it. 3-2 to Baerga. Also in that ball game. In the 8th inning, Cleveland got the bases loaded and nobody out. And they had Bell and Tomey and Murray up and did not score even 1 run. Bill Seamus, the relief pitcher, got all 3 of them. Still 3-2 to Baerga.
John, because of the circumstances that happened the first 2 games, Thursday and Friday, tonight's ball game is a must for the White Sox. It's far more important, more pressure on them than the Indians, simply because they would have wasted the efforts of the first 2 games. If the Indians win tonight, they're exactly where they were when they came in here with a big lead. So it's important that the White Sox win this ball game.
Hit hard to right field. Mouton. And he misjudged it a little bit, but he went back to catch it. Turned into a nice play.
Well, Baerga is starting to swing the bat better in the last couple of weeks. He's hitting the ball hard, and he hits another hard line drive. He got a double in the first inning. He lines another one back. Now Mouton goes back, and at the last second, he reaches up and catches it.
Shootout, and the crowd is responding to the arrival of Albert Bell. Bell from LSU. Lyle Mouton also went to LSU, and Lyle got to know him. Albert would come back. Mouton was there after Albert. That's a foul, strike 1. Albert would come back before spring training and work out with the baseball team down there. And Mouton became very friendly with him and likes him a lot. And said he's very sad to see Albert the subject of so much controversy. He said he thinks so much of him, he wishes that he could actually do something about it and take all the controversy away so that Albert could be just judged as a player, as a hitter. On the other hand, I mean, Albert creates a lot of his own problems.
Well, look, John, a lot of people are wondering whether all the controversy has hurt the Indians. I don't believe it has hurt them as a team, but I do believe that the continual controversy is starting to wear on Albert Bell and is starting to hurt him. I think it hurts him individually.
Well, is it a coincidence that he has not hit a home run in these last 18 days when really all of the controversy became a very big national issue? The case of Fernando Vina, the hearing before the league president, the suspension.
Well, I believe that is a coincidence that he hasn't hit a home run. I just believe that eventually, I mean, look, we're all human beings. We want people to like us. I don't care who we are. You really want people to like you. And when all this happens and it just continues to be, you know, a bad mark against you, eventually it does great on you.
That one is hit deep in the left. Off the top of the wall, and Albert was not running. He'll get only a single. Played nicely by Phillips. Albert was in a home run trot there.
Well, Tapperty makes a mistake over the middle of the plate. He gets this fastball up, and Albert attacks it, and he really hits it hard. I think he felt like it was going out. He knew he hit it hard enough to get it out. He just didn't know if it was high enough to get out. And you see there, he's really not running, as you said, and the ball hits off the wall, bounces right back to Tony Phillips. Good play here by Tony. He catches in one hop and fires back to the infield. Albert has to stay at first with a single.
Now Jim Thome. And certainly you don't have to do anything to create controversy for Albert Bell, but I will say, Joe, I think it's a bad example. I mean, he's the big man in the ball club. For him to set, he needs to run those kind of balls out. I mean, if he doesn't, how about Manny Ramirez? Why should he? Here's Thome, runner at first. Albert just missed a home run by 3 or 4 inches, but that wasn't the point. It wasn't a sure thing home run, and he gets only a single, and he could have had a double had he been running hard the whole way. I don't think they'd be in scoring position right now. 1-1 to Thome. And he's back to the bag safely. There's Karkovic with that strong arm.
Well, what happens here, John, with Karkovic is every time he tries to pick someone off first base or something happens that, you know, you got a left-handed hitter up there, he has to throw behind the hitter here, or otherwise I think he would have been able to get Albert Bell. And watch this, a good fastball inside. He fires. You can't do it any better than that. Albert just struggles and gets back. Nice throw by Karkovic. Nice tag by Thomas. He just got back safely.
1-2 to Thome. 2-2.
I mean, I just think that, again, it affects Albert personally more than it does the team. I think the team says, hey, we have to play baseball. We're going to play. We're going to win. We're fighting for a pennant. We're not going to let anything get in our way. But eventually, like I say, answering all the problems, answering all the questions, and being in the spotlight under a microscope, I think it does affect Albert over the long run. Even though a lot of people say he plays better when he's angry and so forth and so on. I think that is true for a short period of time, but I don't think it is for a long period of time, and this controversy has been going on for a long time, starting with the end of World Series last year.
3-2 to Thome. Frank Thomas backs up at first base. Albert will be running. There he goes. That one is hit high in the air to deep center. And Dave Martinez, out number 3. He really hit that one hard, but under it too much. Frank Thomas is coming up. 1-0. Sunday Night Baseball from Chicago. White Sox 1, Cleveland 0. We go to the last of the 4th inning. And the big guy, Frank Thomas, is coming up against Oral Hershiser. Thomas grounded out to second his first time. I'm John Miller with Joe Morgan. 7th year of Sunday Night Baseball. And Frank Thomas is certainly one of the most exciting performers that we've seen over these 7 years. Not because he steals bases or he's got great speed, but, I mean, every time Frank comes up, you know that he might hit a home run to any field, on any pitch. He has incredible power. Every park that he plays in looks like it's too small. 1 ball and no strikes. Base hit. And Hershiser should consider that a victory. Kept him in the ballpark.
John, I think the most unbelievable thing to me is that you have so many power hitters today who also hit for a big average, high averages. You know, in the past, you had guys, sluggers, who may hit 280 and hit 30 or 40 home runs. Now you have sluggers who are hitting 340s and 330s, and they're hitting 30 to 40 home runs. I think that is the most amazing thing to me. I mean, you have several of them.
Harold Baines, the hitter.
And you have you have Mo Vaughn, you have Bell, you have Griffey Jr., McGuire, Thomas. These guys not only hit 300, they hit in the high 300s and hit 40 to 50 home runs. I mean, that's amazing to me.
Mo Vaughn, 355 at game time this afternoon. And only National League, Mike Piazza leading the league. 357. He got 21 home runs. Ellis Burks, 344 over there. He's got 20 home runs. Of course, Barry Bonds for years has been that kind of a slugger with a high average. Jeff Bagwell joins that list now, too. What a year he's having again. That one is shot into deep right center. And Ramirez at the warning track on number 1. Thomas back to first. Now we're talking Frank Thomas and Albert Bell. I mean, two of the quintessential sluggers of the 90s.
And, John, in the past, there were two different animals. One, you being an average hitter, the other was a slugger. Now these players have combined those. I mean, look at those numbers. I mean, you know, Bell basically hitting 300, and Thomas hit, you know, 325. That's an average. I mean, these guys are amazing to me. And, again, there's so many of these types of players in the major leagues now.
Now, Albert Bell is the leading home run hitter in that period that we just looked at. And Thomas is number 2. And Thomas is number 1 in RBIs, and Albert is number 2. So these are measurably the two best sluggers. We're just talking run production.
Remember a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago, I mean, Gary Sheffield was going for the Triple Crown. And now, I mean, the guy that most people think may succeed at that before anyone else would be Frank Thomas, but you still have to hit 360 to do it.
Robin Ventura, that's a base hit. Frank Thomas will hold at second as Lofton comes up with it. So Ventura with his first hit of the game. 2 men out, 1 man out, and Lyle Mouton coming up. Well, Frank Thomas, as we look at that base hit again, Joe.
Here's a sinker. He's trying to get the ground ball to second base, but left-handers are good low ball hitters, and he's able to get that ball in the air instead of hitting the top of it, so he gets a single to right field, right center, and Kenny Lofton plays the ball perfectly, and he holds Thomas at second base.
Now Mark Wiley, the Cleveland pitching coach, out to the mound with Sandy Alomar and Oral Hershiser, first and second. Lyle Mouton, who drove one deep to right center his first time, is coming up. 1-0. The White Sox already leading. The one thing when you talk Frank Thomas versus Albert Bell, just comparing them, because Thomas gets so many walks in addition to the high average and everything else, I think he creates more RBI opportunities for the men behind him than Albert does.
Yes.
Although Albert's getting a lot more walks this year than ever before. Strike one. Now, I brought that up because nobody knows about walks. And they're important in the game more than you.
Yeah, walks are very important. But the other point, the difference also is that Frank Thomas is actually a good base runner, too. I mean, he runs well. A lot of people remember he was a tight end as a football player.
Yeah, just the Babe.
Oh, yeah.
Teddy ball game and Little Joe. The all-time walk leader. As Joe likes to put it, just me and Babe and Teddy. Yeah. Let's take a walk. 0-2 the count. Well, if he keeps healthy, if he stays healthy, right, and keeps going for many years, Frank Thomas will be on that list. Definitely. Mouton chased a bad one, and Hershiser made short work of him. The first strikeout for Oral.
If I had to guess at what the conversation was about when Wiley went out there, is that you're throwing more strikes than normal. No one is chasing pitches out of the strike zone, so he gets ahead of this hitter Mouton, so he throws a breaking ball off the plate outside, and they chase it. The pitches to Thomas and to Ventura were strikes. Even though he's trying to get the ground ball out of Ventura, he threw a strike with the sinker. And Hershiser normally throws balls that sink out of the strike zone or move out of the strike zone.
Mouton in there tonight instead of Danny Tarnable. Tarnable injured his elbow in a collision. That's way outside. Ball 1 to Norberto Martin. Martin grounded out to short his first time. 2 on, 2 out. Frank Thomas, who singled at second base. Robin Ventura, who singled at first base. 1-0, Chicago ahead. The last of the 4th. Ron Karkovice is on deck. He would be next. But the point of it about Mouton there, he doesn't often start against tough right-handers.
Yeah.
And they'll put him out there against the lefties instead of Dave Martinez. And Mouton did look a little overmatched there against Orel in a big at-bat.
Well, Hershiser obviously is a better pitcher, under pressure than he is sometimes with 2 outs and no one on. I mean, he rarely makes a mistake with runners in scoring position when he's on his game.
Wow. Well, he's doing just what you said.
Yeah.
No slider out of the strike zone.
In the last 4 games as it starts, as we mentioned, he has been on his game. So he's continuing tonight. He can make the pitch that he needs to make in clutch situations. That's what always has separated him, in my opinion, from a lot of other pitchers. He knows the right pitch at the right time, and he can make that pitch.
1-0 Chicago. 2 men on, 2 men out. Both runners ready to go on anything. Popped up. On the right field line. Fired by Ramirez. And he makes the catch in foul territory rather casually. 2 hits, 2 left. Eddie Murray coming up. 1-0 Chicago. Well, there are Hall of Famers, such as my partner Joe Morgan, and then there are those who one day will be. And here is one of them, Eddie Murray. I mean, when you get 3,000 hits, that usually gets you an invitation into the club. When you get 500 home runs, that usually gets you into the club. And if you hit 500 homers and 3,000 hits, that makes you one of the only 3 in the history able to do it. And Eddie Murray is 10 home runs away from 500. He grounded a second his first time. And he shoots one down the right field line. Extra bases for Eddie Murray. Mouton has to dig it out in the corner. And Eddie Murray with his 7th double of the year.
John, Eddie kind of laughed at me before the ball game. He said, Joe, kind of kidding me. Because I asked him, I said, Eddie, got off to a slow start power-wise. Now you're starting to drive the ball. Have you been doing anything different? And he kind of laughed at me. He said, Joe, when you're struggling, you're old and you can't do things. He said, but I haven't changed anything. I'm just starting to hit. And that was a slider that didn't slide enough, and he just ripped it down into the corner. Didn't look like there was anything wrong with that swing.
Eddie Murray, 40, and put together a rather remarkable career. Here is Manny Ramirez. And that is inside, and on the appeal, Al Clark rules it a swing.
Well, it appeared to me that Ramirez was going to take that pitch, was trying to go to right field, and he ended up, trying to check his swing, and he went too far, but he was taking that pitch to right field.
Ramirez popped out to the second baseman his first time. He's 0 for 1. Sandy Alomar is on deck. He takes that one to the right side, but into the upper deck. Not many reach the upper deck here at Comiskey. That's been the subject of controversy here in Chicago. The new ballpark here. And in the papers today, there were articles about, is the upper deck too upper? Is it up there too high? And,
well, this ballpark is definitely different than not of the mold of Camden Yards and Jacobs Field.
And this ballpark, of course, attendance is down in Chicago. People looking for reasons why. Fastball inside. 1 ball and 2 strikes. They say the upper deck not only is up too high, but too steep.
But they said that about Camden Yards as well, didn't they?
No.
No? Okay.
One ball and 2 strikes to count. And that's foul off to the right.
Well, Ramirez has tried to go to right field, which I think was the right play until he got 2 strikes. I think he just has to put the ball in play. He was going to take the first pitch to right field. He tried to go on the second pitch. Again, that's the way to play the game. You try to move Eddie Murray along to put him in a scoring position with less than 2 outs. But now with 2 strikes, his job is just to go ahead and try to drive him in.
Just did get a piece of it. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Alomar is on deck.
Seemed like that was a hanging breaking ball inside. He tried to turn on that one.
The upper deck here at Comiskey, there are 3 levels of the luxury suites and then the upper deck. And it is up there very high. The first row of the upper deck here is further away from home plate than the last row of the upper deck at the old ballpark here. Meaning that every seat in the upper deck here is further away from the field than every seat in the upper deck of the old Comiskey. And of course, that gets into the discussion of having the obstruction poles and the old ballparks moving the upper deck out closer and all of that sort of thing. But in the article, I think of the Sun Times today about it, they interviewed some of the people sitting in the upper deck this weekend, and most of them said that they liked the view up there. Base hit over the head of Ventura. Murray will score easily to tie the ball game. Ramirez will make it into second easily with a double. Back-to-back doubles, Murray and Ramirez. And Cleveland has tied it up against Tapani.
And you have to give Ramirez a lot of credit there, John. Tapani came inside too often. He was trying to keep him from hitting the ball to right field. So Ramirez went ahead and tried to pull the last 2, and this pitch here stays inside. He jams him. He does a good job of jamming him, but Ramirez is so strong that he muscles this ball over the head of Robin Ventura down the left field line, and he drives in Eddie Murray, and that's a double, and we're tied at 1. So good hitting there by Ramirez.
1-1 now. Sandy Alomar coming up. 59th RBI of the year for Manny Ramirez. And hitting lower in the batting order, that's a lot of RBIs. Ramirez hit 8th most of last year. Sandy Alomar.
Well, Sandy looked like he was going to right field on that first pitch as well, John. So,
well, he should be, right?
Yeah, but I'm just saying it shows you that Cleveland does more than just go up there trying to hit the ball out of the ballpark as they were accused of doing last year. They know how to play the game, and they're going up trying to play the game in this situation, because if they can win tonight's ball game, I mean, this will be a big step for them, because they lost the first 2, and to bounce back and win the last 2 will be great for them.
They jammed him on that one. You know, going back to that previous pitch, the swing and a miss, as you see the standings are very tight in the Central coming into this game. And Tapani, knowing that Alomar's trying to go to the right side, and he threw that pitch. It looked like it was going to be on the outside, and it moved a little bit off the outside. Ended up swinging the pitch off the plate.
Right.
Pretty tough pitch in a spot like that. Pretty smart pitch. Jamming him again. 0-2 to count. The ball back in amongst the spectators off to the right.
Well, that's exactly what he did to Ramirez. He tried to jam him after he got 2 strikes, and Ramirez was able to muscle balls to left field. I think Alomar has to forget about trying to hit it to right field now. With 2 strikes, you just have to try to drive the runner in, and you see that ball really diving in on him. You see him shorten his arms. You pull your arms in to try to get the barrel of the bat to the ball. No extension there.
That one is belted deep to left field. Gone! A home run for Alomar. His 6th home run of the year. And now it is a 3-run inning for Cleveland. 3-1. 2 doubles and a homer. And this is the bottom part of the batting order.
Well, these hitters are pretty good hitters. That's all I can say. Because Tapani had him set up. He threw him a breaking ball away, threw a pitch away. But then he came back inside once too often. He did the same thing to Ramirez. Now, this ball will be inside. See, down and in. If he would have gotten it up and in, he may have been able to get away from it. Here's a fastball down. See, that pitch is down. It allows him to get to it. You see the extension there on that swing, whereas he didn't have any extension at all on the pitch before.
Scott Leyes, he struck out his first time. Well, the explosiveness of the Cleveland Indians. And we're looking at it here. In the first game of the series, we saw some, but they were behind 15-5. And they got 5 runs late in the ball game. Made it a little bit scary, but this is a little bit of a different story. A tight pitcher's duel, and all of a sudden, the bottom of the order. Not by Erga, Bell, Tomey, Lofton, any of those guys. But Murray, Ramirez, and Alomar at the bottom of the order. And they've got 3 on the board in short order. That's down the left field line. Fair ball, and will get extra bases. Scott Lance with a double. His third double of the year. Lance, a one-time World Series hero with the Minnesota Twins.
John, managers always used to tell you, if you try to do your job for the team, the rest will take care of itself. Alomar tried to go the other way. Now you'll see him try to pull the ball. Now look, he's got his arms extended, gets the barrel of the bat out there on the fastball inside. You can see the target was in about belt a little below the knee, above the knees, and he was able to extend on the ball and drive it out of the ballpark. The other fastballs were up and in. He was fighting them off, pulling his arms in, trying to get the barrel of the bat there. But the point is, they tried to do what they were supposed to do for the team first, take the ball the other way, and then after that, they went ahead and hit with 2 strikes, and both he and Ramirez have produced runs here.
There is bullpen activity. Meanwhile, Ryan Kaiser, a right-hander, gets up in the Chicago bullpen. Wow. In the space of 4 hitters, the 2-hit shutout carried by Tapani into this inning has been obliterated. He's given up 3 runs. He's given up, there's the bunt, but foul by Lofton. He's given up 3 doubles and a home run to the first 3 hitters of the inning.
Well, that's another smart play right there. If Lofton is able to drop that ball down and move him over to third with less than 2, they'll be in position to score another run. But I think what has happened to Tapani is what I mentioned at the beginning of the ball game. You can't just live by the sinker with the Indians. I don't think he's used his breaking ball enough to the right-handers in this inning.
1 ball, 1 strike down at Kenny Lofton. He has hit a comeback from the check swing, and he is lined out to the left fielder. He is 0 for 2. Nobody out.
Sorry, John. We saw Hershiser in a similar situation. He went to the breaking ball. He set him up with the fastball inside and then got him to chase some breaking balls. I don't think Tapani has done that well enough in this particular inning.
Another fastball. Base hit, left field. Lance will be held. Lofton will hold it first as the ball is cut off by Robin Ventura. 5 consecutive hits for the Cleveland Indians.
Well, this is the Cleveland Indians of last year. They can score a ton of runs without making any outs. That's a fastball away again, and Lofton going the other way, lines at the left field for a base hit.
And you were going back to the theme of throwing too many fastballs here.
Right.
That looked like a sinker, but it was up.
Yeah, but again, at the beginning of the telecast, remember I said the important thing was his changeup and his breaking balls, because you can't just throw these Cleveland Indians a lot of fastballs. They will hit them. They're good fastball hitters. He mixed his pitches pretty well, but when he got in the jam, he really went to his out pitch, which is the sinker. He just stayed with it. And the Indians have adjusted to it. I mean, they almost know what's coming.
They've got Lofton at first, Lance at third. And what about Lofton here? You got Vizquel batting left-handed at the plate. Is Lofton going to go?
I think he should. I mean, if he gets a good jump, he should go, simply because there's no reason to hold at first base in this situation. You get over to second base.
That is a strike on the inside. There's nobody out.
Right.
And Tapani has just thrown his 25th pitch of this inning. And after Vizquel, then the big guys come up. Then Baerga and Bell and Tomey will be coming up. The middle infield double play depth. Even with 3 runs in, they're willing to give up a run to get the double play because of those big guys coming. Now, Vizquel just trotting up the first baseline. Ball caught by Guillen.
I know what you were thinking, but obviously you can't just drop it. You know, if the umpires think you did it intentionally anyway, they will call the hitter out.
You couldn't let it drop.
Yeah, you're talking about exchanging, let the ball drop, force Lofton at second, so you have this skill at first base. But the umpires, if they think you did it intentionally, they will call the hitter out and return the runners to the bases.
And a little more risky when you also have a runner at third base.
Right.
When would that happen? That happened in the '72 World Series. The Reds and the A's, fingers let one drop. And
that was a bunt.
And it rolled away from him and created all kinds of trouble. He didn't get anybody out.
Yeah, you can let a bunt drop intentionally, but you can't let a pop-up drop.
Here's Baerga. Now with 1 out, a double play ends the inning. Baerga has hit the ball hard twice. There is Leyes, who doubled at third base. Lofton, who singled at first base. Baerga has doubled down the right field line. And he has hit a screaming liner deep to right that Muchan jumped up to catch. You see, Baerga has not been the man with minutes run position this year that he has been in the past. Too high. 2-0 to count.
I don't think there's any reason for Lofton to stay at first base. You've already scored 3 runs in this inning. Just try to break the game open. If you steal second base and the guy gets the base hits, obviously that's 2 more runs. So I don't think there's any reason for him to stay there other than maybe Tapney is bothering him because he is a little quicker to the plate now.
Popped up. Martin. The runners will hold. So Baerga can't get it done. 2 men down. And here comes Albert Bell. Well, they've had this great opportunity to bust this game open here, to make this a 4 or 5 run inning or more. Neither Vizquel or Baerga could get it done. Now here comes Albert. He has hit a comebacker, and he hit a shot off the very top of the fence in left center, on which he got only a single.
John, isn't this an amazing game you have? They had gotten 5 straight base hits, 4 straight base hits, hitting the ball hard, 5 straight hits. And then you get the 2 left-handers up there, and he jams them both. That's very interesting. I mean, that shows you the difference in this game, why it is such a great game. You can't count on anything happening.
Well, here's Albert. A chance to break it open. 2 down, 2 out. Oh, he chased the pitch Tapney wanted him to chase and foul-tipped it into Karkovice's glove.
Let's take a look at this first pitch from Tapney. That looks like a sinker. It's over the outside part of the plate, off the plate outside, actually. And Albert went out after it.
Tapney holds that ball right out where you can see it as he gets the sign. Back to the bag is Lofton. Well, now they don't care so much if Lofton goes or not, do they? I mean, if you're Chicago.
If you're the White Sox, I don't think you have to protect against the double steal. You think of Leyes as being a speedy base runner, but you cannot afford to throw the ball away trying to get Lofton at second base.
1 strike to count. Change-up. Strike 2.
Again, you have to mix your pitches when you're pitching to these Cleveland Indians. He takes a little bit off of that pitch, and he gets Bell out front, and Bell wisely took the pitch because he was out in front.
Now Bell asks for timeout, and it was granted.
You could see that Karkovice had set up low and away, which would indicate the target he was given that maybe they were going to try to get a slider out there.
How about that forkball that he throws?
Well,
I know what you're saying. I'm just doing a little coaching from up here, Joe. I'm trying to help.
No. The point I was going to make is that you can control the slider better than you can the forkball in this situation. And the last thing you want to do is have 2 strikes on Albert Bell and bounce the forkball and let it get away and let the runner come in from third. So the better choice of the 2 would be the slider away.
And the sinker in.
Well, that's a smart pitch, too, because he is 0-2, and Karkovice had set up outside, and I think Bell could see that because he stood out there so long. So what do? You come back in, you throw a pitch off the plate inside with the fastball, and then you go back away again.
Bell is the 8th batter of this inning. He's never hit well against Tapney. 1-2 the count. 2 on, 2 out. Time taken again by Bell, and now Karkovice is going to go out to talk to Tapney here. Frank Thomas would join in the discussion here.
Well, the problem that they're having here is once Karkovice sets up out there and he doesn't throw the pitch, it gives Bell time to realize where he's setting up. I mean, if you set up out there too quickly, you don't have to even look back as a hitter. You can feel where the catcher is if he sits there long enough. So the catcher normally sits in the middle of the plate, and just before the pitch comes, he will move to where he wants it to go. But if you sit out there long enough, the hitter knows exactly where you're going.
Leyes at third, Lofton at first. 2 down. 3-1 Cleveland. There goes Lofton. Struck him out. And so the White Sox stay in the ball game. Tapney got it done after being in terrible trouble. 3-1 Cleveland. Chicago just after sunset. There's the look at downtown from the south side. We're out on the south side at Comiskey Park. Last of the 5th inning. Sunday Night Baseball continues. Oral Hershiser to Ron Karkovice. Ball 1. Now, Hershiser pitching with a lead for the first time. 3-1 Cleveland, although it looked like it was going to be 4, 5, or 6-1 there. Karkovice walked, leading off the 3rd, and ended up scoring the Chicago run. One of the few mistakes Hershiser made in this game, walking a guy, hitting .224 with nobody on, and it cost him. The only walk that he's allowed. Ozzie Guillen will follow, and then Johnny Phillips. 3 runs, 7 hits for Cleveland. 1 run, 4 hits for Chicago. The slider misses. 2-1 the count. For Kevin Tapani, showing why he's been a leader on this White Sox staff. I mean, he was getting lit up. They had 5 straight hits against him. 4 for extra bases. And then he retired 3 tough hitters in a row to keep him in the game. And he's Karkovice again.
But back to Tapani, even though, you know, I say that maybe he should have tried some other pitches, he actually had a game plan in mind, and that's what you really want from your pitcher. You want him to have a game plan. He had, in his mind, he could have jammed those 2 right-handed hitters. He tried. He didn't get away with it, but that was his game plan.
Popped up. Sandy Alomar comes over, but it lands in amongst the spectators. Out of play. 3-2. The only 2 3-ball counts that Hershiser has had in the whole ball game have been to Karkovice. That's funny. I mean, this is a guy you figure you can go right after.
Well, sometimes after you wade through a lineup, you get down to the bottom, you say, well, I don't want to make a mistake because Karkovice can hit the ball out of the ballpark. I don't want to throw a pitch right down the middle. So sometimes you might get a little tentative and don't go right after it.
3-2 the count. It's not like Karkovice has ever done anything against him. He's only faced him 2 other times before tonight, and he's 0 for 2 against him.
Well, he went right after him there. That was a fastball right in the middle of the plate there.
I mean, Karkovice got a pitch they hit right there.
But again, you're right. He probably should have given him a pitch to hit last time. When a guy is hitting, you know, 220, you say, well, last thing you want to do is walk him leading off an inning, as they did his last at bat in the 3rd.
On the other hand, it's the only run Orioles given up, so everything else he's done, we have no other complaints. And another foul ball. 3-2 to Karkovice.
That was a tough pitch there. Good hitting there by Karkovice to get a piece of that. That was a good sinker, sinking down and in off the plate.
What do you think of this new grizzled veteran look of Orioles?
Well, I thought he was preparing for a movie or something, but then I remembered he's not in L.A. anymore.
We're told that when his kids get home from summer camp, he'll shave then. It's one of those family things, Joe.
Well, we better not stay away too long. He may look like the werewolf when they get back.
When they get home and they won't want to stay, yeah. 3-2 the count. I like it, though. Makes him look mean. There's a high drive. Deep down the left field line. Bell. And that is out number 1.
And speaking of Albert Bell, let's take a look at his last at bat, the last 2 pitches. I thought Tapani did a great job of setting him up. He had a 2-strike count, but look, he's going to go inside. Now watch, Karkovice doesn't move on this pitch. Fastball in off the plate. This is just to let him look at a different pitch to open up the outside corner. Now on the next pitch, he will move outside, and you'll see Karkovice move away, and he threw the pitch that John wanted him to throw, the splitter. This pitch low and away. You see Karkovice move outside, and they get him out.
Well, the White Sox come back and win this game. That'll be one of the key at-bats of the night. Ozzie Guillen dropped down a bunt his first time. A big play and helping the White Sox get their only run. And he takes a strike. Ozzie had a 3-hit game last night against his former teammate, Jack McDowell. He had a great game here last night. A sellout crowd. White Sox were ahead 1-0 into the 9th inning. And the only run they'd gotten was on Ozzie's triple against McDowell. And Ozzie says he loves to face McDowell because he says he's such an intense and great competitor that it's just more fun to play the ball game when he's out there. And although McDowell didn't really say so in so many words, Guillen said it for him. He said, and we know that he gets up even more when he faces us. his own team.
And McDowell gave him credit. He said the one guy I hate in that situation over there was Ozzie Guillen, and Ozzie came through last night.
I mean, it's funny. You look at Ozzie's numbers. They're not impressive. He never walks. He doesn't hit for power. And yet this guy puts the ball in play.
And there's no set way to pitch him because he's a slasher. I mean, he just swings.
The first base side, and Leyes takes care of it. Out number 2. Tomorrow night at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific, the United States Olympic baseball team takes on Cuba. Chris Benson, the first pick in the June draft by the Pittsburgh Pirates, will be on the mound for the U.S., facing the defending Olympic champions. That's Cuba versus the United States. Tomorrow night at 7:30 Eastern on ESPN. USA is 18-1 in its ball games, although Cuba defeated the United States 5-1 yesterday. They have this great third baseman, a veteran, Linares. I think it's Omar Linares. He went 4 for 5 in that ball game. Few major league teams would like to get in there and negotiate with Linares. 0-1 the count to Tony Phillips. He has grounded a second and grounded into a double play. And one of the keys to the matchups tonight that Joe mentioned at the top of the telecast was Oral keeping Phillips off the bases, and he has done so, at least up till now.
As we mentioned before, John, there are certain people who do certain things on a field consistently. Tony Phillips scores runs. There are guys who drive in runs. There are people who just get on base, but Tony Phillips scores runs.
The White Sox have played 79 games, and Tony Phillips has scored 67 runs. He has reached base 160 times with a hit or a walk or being hit by a pitch. So he's been on base more than twice every game. Tied for first with Frank Thomas for the league lead in walks.
Beautiful pitch there from Hershiser. Slow breaking ball, curveball. He hasn't thrown a lot of curves, but that was a good one. He used the curveball more to left-handers than he does the slider, so he can get a change of speed. Here you're talking about Phillips getting on base. You know, in '93 when he's with the Tigers, he got on base 300 times. First time in the history of the Tigers anyone had ever done that.
Cecil drove him in a few of those.
Yes.
Struck him out. Well, the Cleveland Indians get the lead, and then Oral Hershiser sets them down in order. Jim Thome, then Eddie Murray coming up. The ESPN Sunday Night Baseball Game of the Week is brought to you by Burger King, where you can get your burger's worth. From Comiskey Park in Chicago, Cleveland 3, the White Sox 1, now the 6th inning in E-flat major. I'm John Miller, along with the maestro, Joe Morgan. And here's Jim Thome. He has grounded out to second and flied to deep center. Playing beneath a full moon here near the shores of Lake Michigan. 1 strike to count to Thome. Fastball from Tampany. Called strike 2 on the outside. Eddie Murray on deck, and then Manny Ramirez. Now, for many a ball club, this threesome would be your 3, 4, and 5 hitters. Thome, Murray, and Ramirez. Cleveland, they have such an embarrassment of riches in that lineup. But one of the things that's been interesting this year is that Cleveland, although still scoring a lot of runs, just as many as they scored last year, now they're not way ahead of everybody else. There's a lot of other ball clubs scoring just as many, if not more, runs. Down he goes. Well, they had the first and third nobody out situation in the 5th and did not score. There's Bill Seamus. He came into the ball game in a key spot at the 8th inning Friday here with the bases loaded and nobody out. He got Albert Bell on strikes. Then he got Thome on strikes. And finally, Eddie Murray on this ground out.
Big Frank underneath the Seamus. What a job by Billy.
Yes.
Whoa, boy. Here's Murray. Broken bat looper to center field and caught out there by Dave Martinez. And Murray, who started that 3-run 5th inning with a double, is promptly retired here in the 6th, 2 down. But the point being, here tonight, 1st and 3rd, nobody out. And they had Vizquel, Baerga, and Bell and didn't get anybody else home. Friday, bases loaded, trailing in the ball game, and all of their big guys up. And nary a run.
Well, that's
bases loaded, nobody out.
That's why I say this game is more important to the White Sox than it is to the Indians, because the Indians, the first couple of ball games, they lost, and they really didn't play that well. They didn't perform well. But under pressure last night, they won the game by coming back in the ninth to tie and then won in the 10th. So this is a very important game for the Sox. If the Indians win, I mean, it's, hey, like, we've gotten 4 more games off the schedule. We were playing poorly. Now we're on a roll again.
We came in 3 down. We go out 3 down.
Yeah.
They also play each other 4 times in Cleveland beginning this Thursday. So the White Sox best take care of business here at home.
Yes.
Because it's tough to win at Jacobs Field unless you're the Yankees. The Yankees swept them there for the year. The Yankees are 12-2 at Jacobs Field since it opened, which the whole rest of the American League finds hard to believe. Manny Ramirez double home run his first time. And that's a ball. Kevin Tapani, after laboring through that difficult 5th inning, now has thrown 100 pitches in this game.
And the interesting thing, John, is he never lost his stuff. They just hit a couple of pitches. Obviously, one going out of the ballpark hurt the most. But, I mean, he's still throwing well.
Ventura has a long tournament here. And he did it. 3 up and 3 down. Ramirez is gone. The ESPN Sunday Night Baseball Game of the Week. Dave Martinez, Frank Thomas, Harold Baines coming up. Chicago trailing. The ESPN Sunday Night Baseball Game of the Week every Sunday. Now in our 7th year, and all through those years, every Sunday night, we got a ball game for you. Next Sunday, the Baltimore Orioles, 2nd in the East, and the Boston Red Sox, who have struggled terribly this year, and we will be there to find out why. Even though Mo Vaughn and Jose Canseco are having great years, Tim Daring is having a great year, Red Sox are hitting the ball real well. But they're not winning that often. They won today, though, beating Detroit 9-4. Mo Vaughn, the MVP last year, having an even better year this year. Cal Ripken, who's also having a great year, 38 RBIs in the last 32 games. Roberto Alomar, on his way to the All-Star game, he hit a home run today. Brady Anderson hit number 27. He leads the majors in home runs. That's next Sunday night from Camden Yards in Baltimore, 8 Eastern, 7 Central, 5 Pacific, 2 in Honolulu. What time would it be in Venezuela? And I asked that because Ozzie Guillen told me that his family is watching the ball game tonight down in Venezuela. And they always watch the Sunday night game down there via satellite. And tonight is Ozzie Jr.'s birthday, 12th birthday. Ozzie Guillen Jr. at the ball game.
He likes the old Michael Jordan, number 45.
The baseball Michael
Yeah,
Jordan.
the baseball Michael Jordan.
Ozzie Jr., happy birthday. Cumpleaños feliz.
See.
I didn't know you spoke Spanish.
Poquito.
Ball 1 to Dave Martinez. Frank Thomas and Harold Baines will follow. Hershiser and Cleveland leading 3-1. That's a foul down the left field line. By the way, you fans in Cleveland, the 4 games with the White Sox begin on Thursday. The big showdown at Jacobs Field. But as I understand it, it's sold out. And the series after that. And the series after that. The tickets are at such a premium there. They were sold out before the season ever started. We're going to put next year's tickets on sale now, Joe. We mentioned Cleveland at home. 2-12 against the Yankees since Jacobs Field opened. Against the rest of the league, 111 wins, 35 losses. But 2-12 against the Yankees.
Well, they can accept that, though, John.
I don't
beat up on everyone else.
That's not the impression I get. I don't think they like it.
Tough hop.
Lance still makes the hold, but not in time. Well, Martinez got a board in front of Thomas. That's always important.
Well, Leas played this poorly, in my opinion, so he's got to come get it. He went backwards. You run away from a ground ball that will eat you up every time because the overspin will just jump at you. And they still tried to make the play at first base, but he should have come get the ball, block it, and they would have been able to get the runner at first base, even if he didn't catch it cleanly.
They're going to score it as a base hit.
Well, he played it into one, yes.
Yeah. I mean, maybe the mistake was mental.
Yeah.
You know, not physical, but once he played it the way he did get a very difficult hop, and that's the way they scored it. Well, here's Frank Thomas, and he could tie the game with one swing of his bat. He has grounded to second and singled to left. So Hershiser wants to keep him in the ballpark here. Thomas with great power to all fields. Oh, so how could he take that one? That was his pitch to hit.
Well, the one way you pitch Frank Thomas is you stay in tight on him. He likes the ball out over the plate where he can extend his arm. And I'm sure he was looking for a ball there to drive to right center field. Hershiser came on the inside corner. He just wasn't ready for it.
One strike to count. Harold Baines on deck. Slider down the way. 1 ball, 1 strike.
The first inning, he got Thomas out. He threw a fastball away, and then he threw him a breaking ball. Thomas pulled off the pitch and grounded and hit a weak ground ball. That particular pitch there, if Thomas was pulling off again, he was looking for a pitch inside. And that's not the way Thomas normally hits. He doesn't look for pitches. He just has his own approach to hitting, but Hershiser's made him change his mind a little bit tonight.
Pop-up. And that will reach back safely in amongst the spectators. On the first base side, Leas gave chase, but no play there. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Now, Frank Thomas, in 7 career at-bats against Orel Hershiser, is 4 for 7 with a home run, including a single tonight.
Well, I think what they're still doing is filling each other out. Obviously, Thomas has gotten the best of it so far, but Hershiser is probably pitching him differently each time, and he probably has a pattern in his mind now. I don't believe you ever get a real gauge until they get about 20 at-bats, so still early in this confrontation.
He struck him out with a slider. Yeah. One of the rare times you'll see Thomas actually look bad, chasing a pitch way out of the strike zone.
Well, the reason was he was bailing a little bit, as I mentioned on the second pitch that he took for a ball. He was actually bailing on that pitch. Hershiser set him up with this at-bat by throwing the first pitch inside. Now watch, even though he set up outside, Thomas throws his first pitch on the inside corner, you see? Now watch and see how he pulls off right there, that second pitch. Now fastball in again. Now he chases the breaking ball. We're watching, he bails again. So he was really looking for the ball inside.
Harold Baines right back at Hershiser, knocks his glove off. Hershiser recovers. He pulled Leas off the bag, but Leas, with Baines being a very slow runner, able to get back, and that one was not easy and was not pretty, but they got Harold Baines out as Martinez moved up to second.
Well, this was going to be a base hit to center field, but Hershiser's in good fielding position. The ball is lined back through the middle. He gets his glove on it. Actually, it knocks his glove off, and he ends up getting one at first base. Here's another look at it. Now watch, it'll knock his glove off, but see, he was in perfect fielding position. That's the reason he was able to make that play. He does not fall off to the first base side like a lot of right-handed pitchers do, and therefore he was able to stay there and make the play.
Harold Baines has had 8 or 9 knee surgeries. He's had surgeries on both knees. Probably has no cartilage remaining in those knees, and he just does not run well, as you might expect, which is why he is limited now to being only a designated hitter. So they got him easily. Now Robin Ventura, and another tough hitter, well capable of hitting one out of the ballpark. Tonight he is hit into a forced play, and he is single. High in the air, but Lofton will have an easy time of it. And that is the inning. So Hershiser gets through some treacherous moments in this inning. 3-1 Cleveland after 6. John Miller, Joe Morgan from Comiskey Park in Chicago. The Cleveland Indians 3, the Chicago White Sox 1. We go to the 7th inning. Sandy Alomar, a 2-run homer his last time. This one a bad hop and off the glove of Ventura down the left field line. Alomar with a big turn at first, but he'll go back as Phillips hustles the ball back. Orel Hershiser with a big strikeout against Frank Thomas in that 6th inning, Joe.
Well, he got him to chase a breaking ball away off the plate, but it was also, he set him up perfectly for that pitch.
And Mike Hargrove had some comments afterward.
This is the first time I can ever think him swinging a bad pitch. That bad a pitch.
And that may be true. He probably hasn't seen him swing at that bad a pitch before.
I'd have a hard time recalling one myself. And there's ball 1 to Scott Leas, who hit a double in that 5th inning, but got stranded at third. He reached there with nobody out and never got home. He also has struck out. He's 1 for 2. 3-1 Cleveland ahead in the 7th inning. Mike Hargrove is kindly agreed to wear the microphone tonight, and we're able occasionally, via tape, to bring you some of his comments when they apply. We asked the managers if they'd like to do it, and if they say no, end of discussion. Mike Hargrove kindly accepted our invitation. The bunt by Lance. Tapping to Martin covering. So Alomar has been moved along with Lofton coming up. Comiskey Park, and one of the figures here. Nancy Faust, and she's a celebrity in her own right here. From the old Comiskey to the new Comiskey. Where have I heard that tune before?
John, we see a different Cleveland Indians team tonight, and I'm impressed. And that is, last year they beat up on everyone. They didn't have to do all the little things they're doing tonight to help themselves win ball games. I mean, we've seen them try to take shots to right field. We see a situation here where they bunt a runner over to into scoring position. Last year, they just went out and they scored runs. They beat up on the other teams. And, you know, quite honestly, I am more impressed with them manufacturing runs they've done here or tried to do here tonight, even though they still use the home run. They've tried to manufacture runs tonight.
Broken back ground ball to third, to a short. Guillen thought about going to third. He allowed Lofton to beat the play at first.
Yeah. You always have to remember who's running. And if you throw to first base, you have 2 outs. And that's the key base runner in this situation. You say, I get 2 outs, and keep Kenny Lofton off the bag. And you have to always remember Kenny Lofton gets out of the batter's box quickly, and he's always hustling down the line.
Well, we pointed out Albert Bell not running in that ball off the wall earlier. I mean, Lofton ran hard the moment he hit the ball.
Now watch, it only takes one look, and now he throws back to first. He cannot get the ball to first base in time. They could score that a fielder's choice because he started to make a play someplace else, but I'm not sure if they give him a base hit or not. So they do give him a base hit, but they could score that a fielder's choice.
Omar Vizquel now, and again, you have to be wary if you're Ron Karkovice and Kevin Tapani of Kenny Lofton taking off here. You have to decide what you're going to do. Do you throw it through? You put some kind of a play on, because Alomar, although a catcher, is not a bad base runner at third base.
I think you have to throw through in this situation because you still have, there's only one down and you have a left-handed hitter up. I think you have to throw through.
Baerga is on deck. Final ball to come back on play. 1 ball, 1 strike. Vizquel has hit the ball in the air 3 times tonight. Generally speaking, if you make him do that, you're going to get him out. And he is 0 for 3. Fly ball to left and 2 pop flies to shortstop. 3-1, Cleveland ahead here in Chicago. All these big sluggers on both ball clubs. We had a pitching duel again for the 3rd straight night here. Alomar at third base, Lofton at first. That will get Alomar home. Dave Martinez deep into left center. And Sandy Alomar heads home with the 4th Cleveland run, a sacrifice fly for Vizquel. Vizquel with his 36th RBI of the year.
And that is a very, very important run. And they're standing out there, and Lofton just takes off for second base.
Lofton just made it to second base as the White Sox completely forgot about it.
Well, that should be a stolen base. And Frank Thomas is saying that he put his hands up and asked for a timeout, but he can only ask for it. The umpires did not call timeout.
Well, the White Sox apparently just took it for granted. The time was out. Here's Baerga, and that's ball 1.
Well, they should give him a stolen base. I don't know how they're scoring here tonight, so we'll have to wait and see. But
Joe, he stole that base more than anybody's ever stolen.
Well, I agree, but, you know, we'll have to wait and make sure.
He went in through the back door on that one. It is a steal. It's 42nd. And into center. Nice catch by Dave Martinez, and he saved the run. Well, you had the steal by Lofton, and then the robbery by Dave Martinez. Still 3-1. Sunday Night Baseball from Chicago. The first base Cleveland Indians 4. The second base White Sox 1. And the White Sox come to bat here in the last of the 7th. Lyle Mouton, Norberto Martin, and then Ron Karkovice against Oral Hershiser, who for the 5th consecutive start has been outstanding. Hershiser, a 16-game winner last year, and he did most of that in the second half of the year. Mouton to third. Tomey fields it cleanly. 1 away.
Let's take a look at how Kenny Lofton stole second base in the last inning without a throw. Now look here. The second baseman has his back turned. The outfielder does. You can't see the shortstop. He's over in his position, but his back is obviously turned. It is, and you can see the pitcher, it has his back turned. It is the responsibility of the second baseman to cover second base and to protect that bag at all times. So that was a mistake by Martin, because the second baseman is responsible for second base.
Here is Martin. Now, of course, Martin is not the regular second baseman. That job usually belongs to Ray Durham. Yeah, but that's interesting. Now, why is it usually the second? Why is it the second baseman's job and not the shortstop job?
It's called second base. And third base is the third baseman's responsibility. His first base is the first baseman's responsibility. No, but I mean, that's really the way that the defense is set up. The second baseman is responsible for the base runner at first, coming to his bag, which is second base. And second basemen are usually smarter than the other guys. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's because it is second base and because
they're smarter. Yeah.
Martin with a count of 0-2 now. He has grounded to short and fouled out to the right fielder. He'd like to get a base hit or something here after allowing that. I mean, that's in a pennant race especially. It would be terrible at any time. But here you are in a big pennant race ball game on national television. That's not supposed to happen.
No, and it could have been compounded if it wasn't for the great play by Dave Martinez.
Oh, hey, Dave Martinez bailed him out, didn't he?
Yes.
Of course, he bailed the pitcher, Tapani, out, too. I mean, Tapani also had completely forgotten about it.
The runner is the responsibility of everyone, but second base is the responsibility of the second baseman. I mean, everyone should be looking to see where the runner is, but there comes one point, you know, after a play is made.
You're right, but Ramirez is there. And that's out number 2. 2 men gone. Now an update from Larry Beal.
All right, thanks, John. Network MCI takes us to Yankee Stadium earlier today. O's and Yankees and the Birds blow this game open. Brady Anderson, 3-run shot. That's his 27th to lead the majors. O's win 9-1 as they split a 4-game series with the Yanks. Let's go back to John Jones.
You saw Brady Anderson there being greeted by Polonia and Roberto Alomar. The 27th home run. He leads the majors. Karkovice the third. Tomey right there. And just like that, the inning has ended. Hershiser has been outstanding. We go to the 8th inning. Albert Bell, Jim Tomey, and Eddie Murray coming up. The ESPN Sunday Night Baseball Game of the Week continues. 4-1, Cleveland leading as we go to the 8th inning now. The Sunday Night Baseball Game of the Week. Next Sunday will be at Camden Yards, Baltimore. The final game in baseball before the All-Star break. And we'll see Cal Ripken, Brady Anderson, Roberto Alomar, Rafael Palmeiro. Palmeiro's got 70 RBIs, as many as Albert Bell for that Baltimore team. And they'll be taking on the Boston Red Sox, last year's Eastern champions. From Ovan, Jose Canseco, Tim Naring, John Valentin. Here's Albert Bell. He's hit a comeback. He has singled off the top of the left center field wall, and he has struck out with a couple of men on. Kevin Tappan, he's pitched a pretty good ball game, but he is trailing 4-1.
Well, he had the one bad inning, the 5th inning, where they scored 3. But other than that, he's pitched very well.
But even then, he showed why he's a good pitcher.
Right.
Because he kept it from getting totally out of hand. It was a 3-run inning after 5 batters with nobody out. And he prevented them from getting anybody else home. Keeping your club in the game, that's generally what it's about. Now, Hershiser tonight has done a little bit more than that. Albert Bell. When you think Albert Bell, you think home runs. 50 last year, including 17 in the month of September. Will he do that again? I don't know. Guys don't usually do that every year.
No.
And he's 17 homers in 1 month, one of the best months anybody's ever had. Tony Phillips, well, Albert Bell now has gone 54 at-bats since last he hit a home run. Now, coming up this Thursday. Independence Day, the 4th of July, and ESPN will celebrate with our national pastime. At 4 Eastern, the Red Sox and the Orioles from Camden Yards. Then at 7:30 Eastern, the Seattle Mariners, Alex Rodriguez, Jay Buhner, Edgar Martinez, and the Cleveland Indians. Wait a minute. That's the Mariners and the Rangers. And then the Rockies and the Dodgers at 10:30. A triple header on the 4th of July.
Maybe if I leave now, John, I can get to Baltimore in time. What do you think?
You going to that ball game?
Yeah, I think I'll come up and see that game on the 4th of July.
Well, I'll be there.
I know. That's why I said I was
Maybe you could take me to dinner when you come to my town. Oh, you'll be working?
Yeah, I'll be working.
Yeah, and then you'll be going to the big fireworks dinner celebration at the Inner Harbor. Sorry, I forgot. 1-1 to Tomey. Well, I'll buy you a crab cake in the press lounge.
I like that. I like that.
2-1 to Tomey. Tomey is grounded to second, fly deep to center, and struck out 0 for 3. Now it is 3-1. Tampany has not walked anybody. How a guy could not walk anybody when you're going through this lineup is hard to imagine. Didn't even walk Albert Bell, and everybody's been walking Albert lately. And that's ball 4.
Well, for the first time, though, he's showing signs that maybe, he's getting a little tired because he's leaving the ball up. Those fastballs to Tomey were pitches he released high and running away from Tomey.
Kevin Tampany with his first walk. Now, since I mentioned he hadn't walked anybody, he's walked everybody. Or at least the only man he's faced since then. Here's Eddie Murray. He started the 3-run 5th-inning rally with a double and is 1 for 3. And a foul ball off to the right. Bullpen activity with the White Sox. Meanwhile, just in case Tampany has run out of steam here, Al Levine, just recently brought up in the minor leagues, is warming up out there. Looks like a young guy, doesn't he?
Yeah, looks like one of those young, hard-throwing right-handers.
One of those young bucks. 1 strike to count to Murray. That was a line drive to right field, caught by Mouton. 2 down, and the batter will be Manny Ramirez. This Cleveland team, with all the controversy surrounding Albert Bell, and they've also had their own problems. They've lost 7 of their last 9 ball games. They had a game earlier this week in Boston where Kenny Lofton got ejected in the first inning. And they only had 1 man on the bench, a guy who could play a position available. And that left him shorthanded later, and they ended up losing the ball game. Mike Hargrove had a meeting with Lofton afterwards, saying, we can't afford for you to get tossed, especially in a game like that. And Manny Ramirez has had a few heart-to-hearts with Mike Hargrove as well. Last week against the Yankees in a bases-loaded, nobody-out situation. He was at second. And on a line drive right to the shortstop, he took off for third base and got doubled up. They were down by 1 in the last of the 8th inning. The next day, he didn't hustle on a comebacker to the pitcher that got knocked down and rolled away. And he got thrown out again. And the count now 1-1. And there have been rumors around that Cleveland has kind of quietly mentioned Ramirez's name to some other teams to find out if there might be any interest in him.
Well, they haven't
kind of a trade.
They have not signed Albert Bell yet, so I don't know if you want to trade Ramirez before you sign Albert Bell.
John Hart also vehemently, he didn't just deny the rumor about a Baerga to Florida Marlins trade. He said it was bizarre. The whole idea he thought was ridiculous. But apparently there was some interest on the Marlins side in a trade like that. Baerga, of course, has been a key man in that clubhouse. That one is all the way up into the upper deck and caught up there by a fan who brought a glove. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Manny Ramirez. Manny had 32 home runs last year. Got 20 already in less than half a year this season. I mean, and he's so young, we don't know how good he can be. But
and that's the point. I think he will get better as he gets more experience. But probably what has happened to him this year, he has fallen in love with the home run. That may be one of the problems he's having average-wise this year.
And as you saw, the 31 home runs last year, I had given an estimate.
It's okay.
I rounded it off to 32.
Well, give or take one, plus or minus one is okay. Because
not in my business.
Hey, over 30 is 31, and over 100 is 107 ribbies. As long as you have 30 and 100, those are the key numbers.
So you mean like Hank Aaron hit over 700 home runs?
You're right.
Ian to second, not in time. Tommy beat it and didn't beat it by much. Ramirez with the infield hit, his second hit of the game. And now Sandy Alomar's had a big night. He's had a hand in all of the scoring.
Well, you see Ventura, now he'll make a dive for it. When he doesn't come up with it, it's almost a cinched single, because by the time Guillen turns and throws, he can't get a lot on the throw, and he can't get enough to beat Tommy to second base.
Sandy Alomar, his brother Roberto, the American League's leading hitter. And back to the screen it goes. A wild pitch by Tapani. The runners advance. Tommy to third, and Ramirez to second on the wild pitch. So now Cleveland with a chance to really break it open once and for all. A base hit by Sandy could make it 6-1. And Sandy has hit a 2-run homer. That was in the 5th inning. That put them ahead in the ball game, and then he singled leading off in the 7th and scored the 4th run. Was Tapani, and you mentioned earlier he might be showing signs of fatigue. This will be his 130th pitch of the game.
A lot of pitches.
Oh, that was a beauty. The split-fingered pitch on the outside. 1 ball, 1 strike.
Although he was rolling through pretty easily the first couple of innings. So it's not like he's thrown 130 under pressure. So just from the 5th inning on, he's been under pressure.
Martin, and he got it. So, as he's done most of the night, Tapani gets the big out to keep his club still breathing in this one. Guillen, Phillips, and Martinez. John Miller, Joe Morgan from Comiskey Park in Chicago. The ESPN Sunday Night Baseball Game of the Week. The first place Cleveland Indians 4, the second place White Sox 1, and the Cleveland bullpen gets busy now. Back of Hershiser, the right-hander Plum, and the left-hander Asemacher warming up. The Cleveland bullpen was a primary source of strength for the ball club last year, but it has a different look right now. Julian Tavares, who was outstanding in the setup role, will start now, replacing Dennis Martinez, who's been placed on the disabled list, at least for a while. You see Oral Hershiser. I mean, his 5th consecutive, not just strong outing, but outstanding performance. I mean, 34 in the 3rd innings, 3 runs allowed in those last 5 starts. Here's Guillen, who's had a bunt single, and he is grounded out. Tommy shallow at 3rd. Nice pickup by Reyes. Beautiful. That one was headed down the right field line for extra bases.
But he made the proper move on this when he came forward to try to not smother it, whereas the other one he ran away from it and couldn't come up with it. See, he has plenty of time if he can smother it. All he wants to do here is just smother the ball right there. But he does make a great play. That ball took a tricky hop. Now watch the hop right here, but he gets it on the half in between hop, which makes it a tough play, but he gets the job done.
Now Tony Phillips. And it's ball 1. Joe mentioned at the very beginning of the telecast, one of the keys for Hershiser was keeping Phillips off the base paths. And he has. Tony has grounded a second, grounded into a double play, and struck out. 0 for 3. He's also shut down Frank Thomas pretty effectively tonight.
Well, it's interesting there you see how often they have reached base during the season, but tonight only 2. That was interesting there. Hershiser was automatically throwing change-ups here, and Sandy Alomar finally stood up and said, "What are you doing?" And you see Frank Thomas getting ready for his at-bat.
Bring it on.
It was kind of like, I said before, you get 2 outs, sometimes you lose concentration or whatever. The first 2 pitches to Tony were just kind of like batting practice fastballs, and both of them were out of the strike zone. And again, that's why you depend on your catcher. Alomar stood up and said, hey, what's going on? He threw his hands open like, throw the ball.
He has issued only 1 walk, and that walk turned into a run back in the 3rd inning. He walked Harkewicz to start the inning. Now, Phillips can get on, and Dave Martinez can get on, and Frank Thomas comes up with a chance to tie the ball game. That's always the best hope for the White Sox. That one is hit deep down the left field line, but it slices back and out of play. And it's a full count now, 3-2 to Tony Phillips. Now, we mentioned the different dynamic in the Cleveland bullpen this year has not been effective, or as effective. Last year it was outstanding. And of course the closer, Jose Mesa, was almost invincible last year. I mean, every time he pitched, except with one exception, they won. And this year he has fallen into a slump. He's blown 3 saves in his last 8 opportunities.
Well, John, it was almost impossible for him or anyone else to match what he did last year. So you would expect there to be a drop-off as far as his blown save situations, and, you know, he won't be able to dominate as much as he did last year, as well as he did last year.
3-2. High, lazy fly. Albert Bell. So he comes back to get Tony Phillips. He's kept him off the base paths. Mike Hargrove with a microphone on, and a little bit ago he said something rather interesting about his strategy here.
I'm not going to let him face Thomas.
Well, that tells you how he feels about Frank Thomas. He said, we've been lucky enough to get away so far. I'm not going to take one more chance with Hershiser in this ball game.
So if Dave Martinez gets aboard here, in other words, Hargrove is not going to allow Hershiser to stay in there to face Frank Thomas, who is now on deck.
See, that's what he did to Phillips. All of a sudden, he just takes and throws a batting practice fastball. It's not really a changeup. He's just not throwing the ball, and that's what Alomar was getting on him about. There's another one.
High, easy play for Lofton. And he will not face Thomas. He may not come out for the 9th inning. And we'll see if Mesa does. But right now, Cleveland's coming up in the 9th. Lofton due up second. 4-1, Cleveland. Sunday night baseball. Here we go to the 9th inning, and Kevin Tapani is finished for the night. And there is the young right-hander, Alan Levine. His name is spelled Levine, but he pronounces it Levine. This will be his 4th Major League appearance. He was called up June 22nd. Made his Major League debut against Seattle after having his contract purchased from Nashville in AAA ball earlier that day. Scott Lance, the hitter. Fastball for a strike. 1 ball, 1 strike. Alan Levine, who is a native of Illinois, played collegiate baseball at Southern Illinois University. He was a Saluki. Ozzie Guillen. And usually that's pretty good strategy if you're a pitcher. I think he did well there. Make him hit it to Ozzie.
Unless it's Lofton.
Well, if Lofton hits the ball on the ground, he's always a threat to reach. But Ozzie made a mistake with him. And that's a couple of little mistakes that we've seen from the White Sox tonight. Ozzie made that one, and then they all fell asleep. After Lofton had gotten on, as he just walked into second base with nobody looking. Kenny Lofton, 2 for 4 in this game. However, even though he's reached twice and stolen his 42nd base of the year, leads the majors in that category, he has not scored a run. Ventura plays him shallow at third. 2-0 the count. Well, Kevin Tapani went 8 innings. He gave up 4 runs, 10 hits, a walk and a strikeout, and a home run to Sandy Alomar. Not a real bad performance, I mean, against a team like Cleveland.
I actually thought it was a good performance. Again, he had the 1 bad inning. Well, if you want to call it bad, it could have been worse. He actually held it to a minimum, but I really think he pitched exceptionally well. He just ran into Hershiser, who was pitching better tonight.
If it hadn't been for those first 5 guys who all had hits against him,
yeah.
13. And Lofton is retired. 2 men down. Lofton from this area grew up in Indiana, but he grew up a Cubs fan. He was raised by his grandmother. And when he'd come home from school, his grandmother, who was legally blind, would always have the Cubs game on the radio. And they'd always catch the end of the game together when he got home from school. Rooted for the Cubs. That's a bunt foul by Vizquel. 2 down, nobody on. Now the White Sox, last chance, bottom of the 9th inning. And they'll have the big guns coming up. Toward the middle, Martin. He got it. Jose Mesa is warming up in the bullpen. We'll see if he's coming on. He's been struggling. Frank Thomas, Harold Baines, Robin Ventura. 4-1, Cleveland. Close to perfect last year for Cleveland, but now he's in a slump. A 4.5 earned run average. Even though he's got 23 saves, he's blown 3 of his last 8 and 2 in a row. And Joe, in his last 8 ball games, he's given up 12 runs, which is more than he gave up all of last year.
Well, as I said earlier, you couldn't expect him to duplicate the year he had last year. Obviously, they're concerned because he hasn't pitched well lately.
Frank Thomas, Harold Baines, and Robin Ventura. He's trying to save it for Oral Hershiser. Thomas down the right field line. Base hit. Now, in his last opportunity, Mesa came on in Boston with a 4-1 lead. And the Red Sox got 3 runs against him and tied the game, and eventually Boston won it in 15 innings. And Hargrove says that with Mesa right now, they had some mechanical problems. They think they've worked those out, but he said the other problem is a loss of confidence.
Yeah, well, your confidence is the first thing that goes. I mean, when you're successful, you know, confidence. When you're successful, your confidence at a high level. When you're not being successful, you feel like maybe, you know, things are going against you all the time. I mean, you can't say anything about that. It was a pretty good pitch he made to Thomas there. Thomas just fought it off and kind of flared it down the right field line.
And a foul ball. 1 ball, 1 strike to Baines. Baines is 1 for 3, hitting .294 for the year. Now, Cleveland has won 13 games in June, and Mesa with only 3 saves during the month. He just hasn't had many opportunities. He's 3 for 6 in his saves this month. Swing and a miss. Now, this would have never have happened last year when he was so close to being perfect, but they've got the bullpen busy right now just in case.
Well, this is a very important game. This is a 2-swing game right here, as you see Shuey in the bullpen.
1-2 to Baines. High, soaring fly ball. Medium deep left. Bell. 1 away.
If the Indians win, they're back to the 3-game lead. If they lose, it's a 1-game lead. So it's a 2-game swing here. So this game is very important. And since they are leading here in the 9th, I don't think Hargrove's going to let it get that far.
Well, if they can win this ball game, they will be 3 games up. And that's right where they were when they came to town. And they know they've got the White Sox coming to Cleveland starting Thursday for 4 more games. Here's Ventura, 1 for 3 tonight. He hits that one high in the air to center, but Lofton is there. 2 men down very quickly. And that leaves it not to Lyle Mouton, but to a pinch hitter, because Mouton has gone back to the dugout. Coming up next, Sports Center. The top teams in the American League's 3 divisions all have been battling this weekend. They'll have the highlights of those games. And one of the wildest games of the year in Denver, Colorado 16, the Dodgers 15. And they'll have all the highlights of that one. That may take half the show right there. And a conversation with John Smoltz, 14-3 for the year. That's on Sports Center coming up right after the game. And there is Ray Durham. We'll try and keep the White Sox alive in this ball game. Paul Shuey warming up in the bullpen. Last night he pitched the 9th inning in a tie ball game, and then when they went ahead in the 10th, they left him in there, where regularly last year. They would have brought in Mesa, but they like Shuey right now. They think he can fill Tavares' role now that Tavares is moving into the rotation for a while. Last chance for the White Sox.
John, you've seen an example of with a hitter, when a hitter goes into a slump, the manager will sit him for a couple of days just to get his mind off of his troubles. Well, you do the same thing with a short reliever. A couple of times you just don't put him in that pressure situation.
That's a strike. 1 ball, 1 strike. Durham questioning the call of Dale Scott. Now, Baltimore beat the Yankees today over in the East. The Yanks lead by 4.5 there. Seattle beat Texas 4-3. Texas leads Seattle by 5. It's still the closest of the divisional races right here in the Central, where even with a win, Cleveland's lead will be 3 over the White Sox. Orel Hershiser coming up big in the clutch again, as he has so many times for so many years. 1 run allowed tonight, 5 hits in 8 innings. And Orel retired the last 9 men he faced, and 14 of the last 15.
Now that's why Tommy Lasorda nicknamed him the Bulldog. Speaking of Tommy, we want to wish him well in his recovery. In fact, I'll be in LA in 2 weeks. Sunday, I hope to see Tommy there.
I hope he's back at Dodger Stadium long before then, and I know he is too. Ball 4. So Durham gets the wall. 2 men on with 2 men out. And now Norberto Martin. The White Sox still alive. Here comes Mark Wiley, the pitching coach, out. So Tommy Lasorda, hey, if they got a TV in his room, we know he's watching.
Yeah.
If there's a ball game on, Tommy's watching it. And we hope he's enjoying this one more than the Dodger game today. There's Shuey up in the bullpen. They said Vin Scully the other day, Joe, doing a ball game in Colorado, things got so bad with the Dodgers that Vinny said on the air, he said, now, Tommy, I know you're looking in your hotel or in the hospital, and we've known each other for what, more than 40 years. Turn the TV off now for your own well-being. Two down, 2 on. Martin is grounded to short, fouled out to right, and flied out to right. Thomas at second, Mouton at first. Popped up. Shallow right center. Baerga. Lofton. Baerga dropped the ball. Thomas has scored. Durham to third. It's 4-2.
If you're Jose Mesa, you say, well, when things were going well for me, that ball was caught, or it was hit high enough to be caught. Now we see the ball hit not high enough to give someone time to run under and settle under it. Baerga made a good attempt at it, but he could not make the over-the-shoulder catch. And now the tying run's at first base. You see Baerga chasing it. He does a good job. He tries to catch it with 2 hands. He did all he could. He just was not able to make the play.
Now Chad Kruger, a switch hitter, will come up to bat for Ron Karkovice. Now the possible tying runs are on base. Well, you know, Joe, it's almost like, hey, tough break for Mesa. Right. Pop fly. A good pitch. Got the pop-up. However, maybe that's not even the point. The point is that he walked the guy before.
Well, that's true, but I think this is why you see Hargrove leave him in there. This would hurt his confidence a lot if you were to take him out, because in theory, in his mind, he should have had the side retired without a run being scored on him, but he didn't, and I think you have to leave him in this situation.
Now, Kruger is a secret weapon against Mesa. He has always hit well against him. 6 for 10 with a home run. Ball 1. Last night, the White Sox came from behind in the 9th inning, albeit from just 1 run behind to tie the game, and then they won it in the 10th. And now the White Sox trying to turn the tables. Still a ways to go. It is 4-2 for Cleveland. Durham at third. Martin, the possible tying run, at first. Maybe an extra base hit away from scoring. Ball 2. There's Durham at third base. Martin at first. And by the way, Alvaro Espinosa now playing first base rather than Scott Leyes. Defensive change made by Mike Hargrove. Two and oh. Albert Bell. And the ball game is over. Hit hard by Kruder, but no problems for Bell. And it wasn't easy, but Mesa does get the save. And Cleveland does get the split in the series. Now they're back to 3 games ahead of the Chicago White Sox, just as they were when they came to town. And after losing the first 2 games and trailing into the 9th inning last night, they come back and get the split. 3 games up on Chicago, nearing the halfway mark in 1996. Next Sunday night, MVP Mo Vaughn and the Boston Red Sox. Jose Canseco, Tim Naring take on Roberto Alomar, Cal Ripken, Rafael Palmeiro, Brady Anderson, and the Baltimore Orioles. That's 8 Eastern, 7 Central. Sandy Alomar's home run in the 5th, that proved to be a game winner. Frank Thomas and the White Sox, well, they just couldn't figure out Orel Hershiser. Bulldog was too tough for him. John Miller for Joe Morgan. Good night, everyone.